Usually the Monday of 4th of July week is the low water mark for any and all NFL news. But they needed a bright, shiny object. They needed to turn the page on the unfortunate collusion talk from last week. I'm not done with it yet. But that at least caused it to get knocked from the top of the stack down to item number 2, because the news of the morning: the Dolphins found a trade partner for cornerback Jalen Ramsey. Just as Tyreek Hill was trying to mend fences and convince Ramsey to stick around, we knew it wasn't going to work. The ship had sailed. It was over. It was done. When the Dolphins came out and said in mid-April that it was over and it was done, that meant it was over and it was done. Ramsey said goodbye to Miami. We still don't know what caused the relationship to go off the rails. Just months, literally, after they made him the highest paid player in the NFL at his position. It's done. It's over. By the way, it's PFT PM. It's Monday, June 30. I'm so excited by the news of the Ramsey trade, I forgot to identify what we are, who we are, where we are, where you are. Where are you, by the way? It's very existential. So we know where Jalen Ramsey is going to be, heading to Pittsburgh. And I was on 93.7 The Fan last week, and they brought up Ramsey to Pittsburgh, and I said they're not going to pay him. Now, that doesn't mean they won't take him if they don't have to pay him a significant amount of money. His salary and overall compensation for 2025 has been boosted. That was the first nugget that was spoon-fed to the usual suspects. We didn't find out what the Steelers were giving up for Jalen Ramsey. That came a few minutes later. We didn't find out what the Dolphins would be paying Ramsey in 2025, because they surely will be paying some of what Ramsey was due to make, unless the Steelers just viewed this as a salary dump of Minka Fitzpatrick. But I don't think he had much guaranteed left on his deal. I took a screenshot of the rest of his contract, and I need to take a deeper dive, but he was due to make $15.5 million this year in Pittsburgh, $17.6 million next year. Final 2 years of his deal, highly unlikely that that's guaranteed. So they just could have pulled the Band-Aid off. They just could have cut Minka Fitzpatrick if they wanted to move on from him and save that money. But they do save $15.5 in cash and cap space. I just can't imagine the Dolphins aren't paying a fairly significant amount of the Jalen Ramsey fully guaranteed compensation for 2025. He'd already gotten $4 million from the Dolphins. There was another $20 million plus that he was due and owing. Again, fully guaranteed, because they just signed him to a new contract in September of 2024. So the first step in the deliberate strategic news leak was Ramsey to the Steelers and more money for Ramsey in 2025, which tells you Ramsey's agents, as we typically know. You're not allowed to talk about who people's sources are. Ramsey's agents handed to Shefty and the NFL media crowd the information about the Ramsey deal. Then what came later, Minka Fitzpatrick was the trade compensation. We'll find out at some point, presumably. We may have to dig a little bit. It may not be the kind of thing anybody wants to wear on their sleeve. We'll find out how much the Dolphins will be paying Jalen Ramsey in 2025. Now, I will say this. One of the things that I do in this job is I hear from people who tell me things, and some of them I take seriously and some of them I dismiss, and some of them I say, well, let's wait and see. And I did have somebody tell me not long after the word came out that Ramsey was going to be traded, that the Steelers would be in play for him because Ramsey and Aaron Rodgers work out together. And I didn't think that was enough of a connection. I guess I was thinking too much of the Steelers, before 2025. They've undergone some sort of organic personality change this year. And that's really the big takeaway. This is just the latest example of what the hell happened to the Steelers. Who is this team wearing black and gold? They're acting like they never have acted before. And I mean never. I first discovered the NFL December 23, 1972, Immaculate Reception game. I've lived in and around Pittsburgh my entire life. I know how the Steelers operate. They don't operate the way they operated this year. They don't do that. They don't pay market value to a stranger to the organization like they did to DK Metcalf. They don't wait some more for an aging franchise quarterback to come in and save the day. They don't make a trade for Jalen Ramsey, who's been passed around the NFL now from the Jaguars to the Rams, to the Dolphins, to the Steelers. It's a short-term thing. They're not trying to keep Ramsey for 5 years. They want to get the most out of him this year. This is not your father's Steelers or your grandfather's Steelers or your great-grandfather's Steelers. This is a team that is desperate, in my opinion, to win a playoff game. This will be 9 years without a postseason win. They are acting like they've never acted before. And it makes me wonder what happens next year if they don't win a playoff game this year. If the Hail Mary pass doesn't get caught, what's your plan for 26? Unless this Rodgers thing goes incredibly well and they decide to run it back, which I think would be a mistake, no matter how well it goes this year, they're going to be looking for a quarterback. What are they going to do with Jalen Ramsey? If they fail to win a playoff game, I don't think they're ever going to fire Mike Tomlin. I saw that James Harrison said that recently. I had a source who regularly deals with the Steelers tell me several weeks back, there's no way in hell they're ever going to fire him. Now, would he want to leave? Would someone call up and make them a trade offer that he would accept? I don't know. Because at the end of the day, the coach has the ultimate say, even though there's no trade clause, there isn't one necessary. If the coach doesn't want to go coach the new team, he's not going to. So, point is this. The desperation we're seeing from the Steelers this year is unlike any we've ever seen before. And we'll find out whether or not it leads to a different outcome than what we've seen in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. No playoff wins in any of those seasons. The longest drought the Steelers have gone since that day in December of 1972 when they won the first postseason game in franchise history, thanks to the late and very great Franco Harris. One last point on Minkah Fitzpatrick. He got traded from the Dolphins during, I believe, let me check this. I believe it was a 21 season or 20 season. It was the 20 season, I believe. No, 2019. Man, time flies when you're having fun. Back in 2019, the Dolphins were in full-blown tank mode to try to get Joe Burrow. And it was working early in the season. And I remember hearing that certain players on the team weren't on board with it. And I believe Minkah was one of them. And he got traded to the Steelers during that tank. I'm going to have to go back and check my notes because, my God, it's been a long time if it was all the way in 2019. Regardless, there was a period of time where it felt like the Dolphins were deliberately trying not to be competitive, and Minkah wasn't down with that. He came from Alabama where all you do is win. He wanted out. He got out. He spent some time in Pittsburgh, and now he's back in Miami. Whether he likes being back in Miami, we'll see. But they're at least trying to win. They're not good enough, but they're at least trying. All right, as I said, bright, shiny object. Page turned on the collusion ruling that came to light last Tuesday. And no one's saying anything about this. And I'm trying to get key players who are involved in union activities, players who I've been told are not necessarily in lockstep with union management and might be willing to say something about this inexplicable decision to hide the collusion ruling that proved that the NFL did indeed try to get teams to collude and had plenty of evidence generated that shows to a reasonable person they did collude. The arbitrator did get it wrong. I know that his opinion is the only one that matters, but I don't care. We can have the opinion that he got it wrong, that the circumstantial evidence proved that the teams did collude at the encouragement, urging, directive mandate of the NFL. So, before this morning, the only person who had said anything about any of this was former NFL player Chris Long. Pablo Torre was on Long's podcast, Greenlight podcast last week, and had some very pointed criticisms of the union, of the decision to keep the ruling under wraps. It still makes no sense. They should have had a press conference. They should have used this in various different forms and fashions to create pressure on the NFL. I've tried to get multiple agents to give me a comment. None of them will, citing the importance of having a positive relationship with both the league and the union, not wanting to make enemies, not wanting to be the victim of potential reprisal. There's a lot of fear of reprisal. There's a lot of fear, a lot of concern that if somebody says something about this, they're going to be retaliated against in some way. Maybe I should be concerned about that. Look, there's a certain freedom in having made your money, having reached and I'm not going to curse, I don't want to do it to Kristen, but it's the FU amount of cash in the bank. Once you reach the FU number, you don't have to worry about somebody coming after your money. You don't have to worry about somebody coming after your livelihood. You want to come after it? Good, fine. Let's go. Let's go. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. I know that I probably would have felt differently 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. So at some point in the last 5 years, I realized if they want to mess with me, fine. It's not going to stop me from saying what I need to say and what I believe the truth to be. And I understand why people fear reprisal. I'm not a big fan of it. I'd rather they didn't. I'd rather that people issue comments. The only agent that would say anything is Peter Schaefer, who I think is also at the I don't give a shit phase, sorry, Kristen, of his professional existence, where he's going to speak the truth. And he wants to see this ruling get leveraged into an elimination of the funding rule. Because the thing that ultimately is keeping teams from fully guaranteeing contracts is the fact that you have to put a huge amount of cash in escrow to cover the future guarantees, all under this outdated notion that the teams aren't going to be good for the money. The teams nowadays are good for the money. You don't need to put the future guarantees in escrow. So if you get rid of that, teams may be more likely to guarantee money 3, 4, 5 years out in the future. Still not the best business decision in the world. As Long said last week, they're rally cars. They get broken. You don't want to invest guaranteed money in guys who are broken. I mean, look at what the Browns did. The fact that Deshaun Watson has ended up being an abysmal addition to the Browns is the best argument for no guaranteed contracts. And I think one of the reasons why fans are trying to shout this down, and it makes it easier for media who cover the NFL for a living to ignore this. Yeah, fully guaranteed contracts aren't great. And as I've been saying for years, and this always comes up right around now, when NBA players that we've never heard of get contracts bigger than the contracts that have gone to most NFL players. The issue of guaranteed contracts, NFL players need fully guaranteed contracts. Here's the reality. If there were ever fully guaranteed contracts in the National Football League, every contract, other than rookie deals, because right now, all the first rounders get fully guaranteed contracts for 4 years. For all veterans, you're looking at 1 year, you're looking at 2 years, at the absolute most. Maybe for a veteran franchise quarterback, you're looking at 3 years. It'll be shorter contracts, greater movement, greater disruption. So those of you fans out there who are rooting for laundry, you're going to be buying a lot more jerseys because there's going to be a lot more movement because these contracts are going to be a lot shorter. They're going to be fully guaranteed, and I guarantee you they will not be more than 1 or 2 years in duration. And again, I understand why people would keep their mouths shut. I don't have to agree with it. It's easy for me to be courageous because I don't have the same things at stake that somebody 25 years younger than me would. But, and someone asked via Twitter that I tell the story. I wrote about it yesterday. I write about it every June 29 at PFT. Joe Delaney. I mean, Joe Delaney made the ultimate sacrifice. Beyond and above anything anybody would ever be expected to do by way of showing courage. Monroe, Louisiana, at a park where there was a man-made pond, dangerous pond, no swimming in the pond. 3 kids were in the pond. 3 kids were struggling. Joe Delaney said, I don't swim too good, but I have to try to save him. And he did. And he gave his life. He left 3 young girls without a father. Pulled the plug on a promising NFL career. Over 1,100 rushing yards as a rookie in 81. The strike knocked out 9 games in 82. Andy had an eye injury. His numbers were down. Future was still bright for Joe Delaney. He didn't hesitate. He didn't think twice. That's the kind of courage that is extremely rare. I think that's one of the big reasons why we point it out every year. How many other examples of that can we point to? Where without hesitation, the guy rushes to his demise, doesn't think twice, doesn't stop to ponder the consequences. That's really what doing the right thing means. I don't want to get on my soapbox, but you don't make it a calculation. You don't do a cost-benefit analysis. You don't wonder what they might do to you or what might happen to you if you run directly into the fray. You just do it. You don't think about it. That's courage. Hadn't really thought about it that way before. Courage is not thinking about what might happen. Courage is just acting without regard. Consequences? I don't care. Somebody needs help. I'm not going to take a step back and think about what it might mean to me, good or bad. Might make me look good. Might kill me. Might cause some other outcome somewhere between those two extremes. Doesn't matter. It's the right thing to do, and I'm going to go do it. So 42 years later, I still remember it every June 29. I'll never forget it. I remember where I was when I was reading the paper. Yes, they had newspapers back in those days. Bowl of cereal, newspaper, flipping through, AP item. Maybe it was UPI. UPI was always the big. I remember being a kid thinking, what's this with UPI in parentheses? What the hell does that mean? Anyway, story of Joe Delaney. I was gutted. It was stunning. Stuff like that didn't happen to your sports heroes, to the people who were regarded as the gods among men, the best of the best. He was the best of the best. He was better than anyone realized. Gave his life in an effort to save 3 children. You know, the facts get fuzzy. I think 1 or 2 survived, maybe just 1. But regardless, he tried. It doesn't matter whether he saved all 3 or 1 or 2. He tried. And he made the ultimate sacrifice in his effort to try to save those lives. All right, one last thing before I answer a few questions. The Malik Beasley. And, I said earlier, this is the time of year where a bunch of NBA players we've never heard of get paid a lot more money than most NFL players make. I definitely hadn't heard of Malik Beasley. 6th man. Shooting guard, I believe, for the Detroit Pistons, due to become a free agent. ESPN reported yesterday that he's being investigated for potential gambling, and not just gambling, on the DraftKings app when he shouldn't be, doing things in games. Allegedly, he's being investigated, as his lawyer said, just allegations. He's entitled to the presumption of innocence, but he's on the radar screen. And it's a matter of a public report from ESPN, one of the NBA's broadcast partners, that Malik Beasley is being scrutinized for potential gambling. And we had Jonte Porter last year. We had Tim Donaghy years ago. The NFL has been lucky. Now, I don't know how much of it's luck, how much of it is the NFL turns a blind eye and doesn't really investigate the way it could or should. I don't know. The NFL justifies getting in bed with gambling because it gives the NFL access to information from the sports books about which of their players are gambling when they shouldn't. Basically, the sports books are ratting on their customers as part of their relationship with the NFL. And one of the things I saw in the Malik Beasley story, one of the major U.S. sports books detected unusual activity as it related to wagers regarding a game involving Beasley's team at the time in early 24, I believe, the Milwaukee Bucks, I believe. How much irregular activity? And this is all speculation, okay? But when you consider the relationship between the sports books and the NFL, where the sports books pay the NFL millions for data and sponsorship and everything else that goes along with the relationship. And the NFL, again, they justify it by saying we get access to information from them that helps us enforce our rules. Okay, are there... And I'm already envisioning the phone call from NBC that it's reckless to engage in this kind of speculation, which would come after the phone call from the NFL to NBC. But I think this is fair. I think this is fair. Could there be a situation in which the NFL is alerted to some sort of irregular activity by one of its sportsbook partners, and the NFL wants that dead? Let's not talk about that. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. Let's deal with that in other ways. Because the biggest fear the NFL had back when it hated gambling was it's going to compromise the integrity of the game. That if legalized gambling occurs on a widespread basis, normal incidents of the game will be viewed as rigging of the game. The commissioner said that. I'm paraphrasing it, but that's what he said. Normal incidents will be viewed as something abnormal, part of a process to rig the game. And remember when the Super Bowl went to Vegas and I didn't get invited to the commissioner's press conference, and I don't know why I didn't get invited, but I had asked a question of one of the executives about this dichotomy between what the commissioner said in the past and what they're doing now. And it's irreconcilable. It's hypocritical. And they offer up word salads like we get access to information from the sports books to help us detect when people are gambling. They went from hating it to loving it. And the reason they hated it is it makes people think the fix is in. And I'm at the front line of dealing with fans who constantly say the fix is in. And the NFL acts like Mr. Magoo when it comes to the accusations that are rampant that the fix is in. And then they joke about it. They joke about the script. They shout down anyone who thinks there's a bias for the Chiefs. And I don't think there's a bias for the Chiefs. At least there's not a conscious bias for the Chiefs. I think there could be subconscious biases for team that is the new America's team. Sorry, Cowboys, but it's true. Team that is the showcase team, the centerpiece team. We want them to advance. We want them to keep playing. It isn't about gambling. It's about ratings. It's about money. The one thing I think the NFL has done in recent years that has created problems for the integrity of the game, it's not about gambling. It's about being too obsessed with money to the point where the people on the football side of the firewall are thinking about money and it's affecting football decisions. So my point is this: the NFL hasn't had a scandal. And part of it is definitely luck. Part of it may be those relationships with the sports books allow the NFL to bury anything before it becomes a scandal. Now, there are certain things that I think couldn't be buried, especially if the feds get involved. But if the sports books are doing see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil when it comes to any irregularities that might make someone think there's a Malik Beasley or a Jonte Porter, it's easy to bury it and pat the shovel on the pile. Remember when Bijan Robinson didn't play, but a handful of snaps when he had an illness that hadn't been disclosed? Bijan Robinson, a guy who's, fantasy football and prop bets popular his rookie year, 2023. Now they got fined, the Falcons did, for not disclosing the injury, but, that could have been something if there had been any evidence of irregular activity, because someone would have known that Bijan Robinson wasn't playing as much as he ordinarily would. So we start seeing a lot of action on the unders for Bijan Robinson. I'm telling you, something like that is out there. There's too many players. There's too many people who want more. Everybody wants more and everybody wants easy money. And I'm leading into the pitch for my next book that's coming out. The target is August 19th. And I should be, by tonight or tomorrow, have a page in place on Amazon for pre-orders. But it looks at the NFL, not the NFL. Technically not the NFL. The letters NFL in that order and the words National Football League in that order are never used. No team names are used. It's a look at a fictional professional sports league that is the dominant sporting concern in America, and a very simple way that corruption could infiltrate the sport through the mob, through gambling, and through the very valuable information that players have before games, and more importantly, for the purposes of the book that's coming out August 19, during games. So I've been very interested in that issue, and I decided a couple of years ago, let's just write a book about it to try to present to everyone the way things could go haywire for the league and why the league needs to be vigilant about keeping it from happening, not just being vigilant about making sure that when they get a call from the sports book about irregular activity, they ask the sports book to, make that go away. Not saying they have, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did. A couple of questions before we wrap it up. J-Dog, why haven't the Cowboys signed Micah Parsons to a new long-term deal yet? Because that's what the Cowboys do, J-Dog. They drag their feet. And right now, there's no deadline. In the Cowboys' mind, they figure out what the deadline is. The latest possible deadline, that's when they do the deal. And unfortunately, it should be before the start of training camp. We've seen it with Ezekiel Elliott. We've seen it with CeeDee Lamb. We saw it with Dak Prescott. Even though Dak didn't hold out last year, they run it right up to the start of the season. So based on past activity, I'd be surprised if the Cowboys get a deal done with Micah Parsons before training camp starts. Hold in or hold out would be the options for Micah Parsons. And they're going to give him the contract anyway. The longer they wait, the more expensive it gets. And then he won't be as ready for the season as he could be. It speaks to a level of stupidity, frankly, when it comes to managing a football team. Get the deals done. It always costs more if you wait. And the problem now is, I was talking to somebody about this over the weekend. The problem is with TJ Watt and Micah Parsons both waiting for their contracts. From the player's perspective, there's value in waiting for the other guy to sign, because then you know what bar you're trying to clear. There's urgency, or should be, for the Steelers and the Cowboys to get these deals done before the other guy does the deal. It's complicated, more so than usual, because you got two elite defenders ready to go, ready to get a deal done, and at some level, they're agents, and it's two different firms. One's with CAA, Watt's with CAA, and Mike is with Athletes First. So there's going to be a level of competition that makes the agents want to be the ones who are able to say after the fact, we got more for our guy than they got for their guy. So get ready to wait into training camp, I believe, and it'll be right up against the start of the regular season, like it was for Lamb, like it was for Dak. I think that's what it'll be for Micah. And if it's not, that will mean the Cowboys have broken from their current pattern. JC Carm asked a question. I'm going to bump this one to tomorrow when I have more time to talk about it. Which quarterbacks are on the hot seat this season? I got a long list that I put together. I'm going to put a pin in that one until tomorrow, like I did with the coaches on the hot seat, and it gives me content tomorrow. So thank you, JC Carm. Mike Moreno Chamorro, any news on what might happen to Rashee Rice following last year's car crash? I keep checking in with his people every couple of weeks, and I was told a couple of weeks ago, I'll have something for you this week. I still haven't gotten anything. The thing to remember, and somebody in the media reached out to me after Justin Tucker got suspended last week. How is he suspended and Rice not? There are criminal charges pending against Rice, and the NFL has learned the hard way to wait until the criminal case is over before making any decisions about a player. The NFL decided last year not to put Rashee Rice on paid leave while the criminal case unfolds. I think the problem is the criminal case is moving very, very slowly. I don't know why it would. The evidence is on tape. I don't know what the delay would be, but it seems to be the criminal case is moving slowly. Last year, the plan was to get Rice through the 2024 season, let him establish himself as an elite receiver, take the punishment in 25, come back, have the best season he can with whatever games he's allowed to play, and then he's set up for his second contract. The knee injury suffered week 4 against the Chargers when he took friendly fire from Patrick Mahomes. That has complicated things. And I think now what Rice would like to do is get through 2025, reestablish himself, have a big year, tee himself up for a big contract, and then take the medicine in 2026. But we'll see. But the key is no criminal charges resolved yet. The league won't do anything until that case is over, and that case has not moved. Matthew Hottenstein, JC Treader going to join the show. Hey, JC's got an open invitation to join the show. Open invitation. But nobody's saying anything. And No one from the union is reaching out and saying, hey, you got this wrong. Let's talk about this. Let me give you some different context. You need to understand. It has been crickets for 6 days. Crickets. It's all part of the MO. Head low, mouth shut, bright, shiny object, wait for this to go away. If they had anything to add to the reporting from Pablo Torre, which I augmented, I did contribute a little bit. It's shake and bake, and I helped. Mainly Pablo as it relates to the machinations of the union. But if that ruling was buried because they're trying to make Lloyd Howell look good and not let D. Smith look good in hindsight, if it's because they're trying to protect J.C. Tread, whatever it is, there's been no pushback that I'm aware of, and I don't think Pablo's gotten any pushback either. So open invitation. J.C. Treader, you want to come on, we'll put you on. Lloyd Howell, you want to come on, we'll put you on. But you are going to get asked about this situation. We're not going to agree to not ask you about it. It's going to be the first question after hello and how are you. Eva G, current quarterbacks who will be first ballot Hall of Famers when they hang up their cleats. I think the list right now, depending upon how some of the younger guys develop, right now, first ballot Hall of Famers, when they're done, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. Now, if they would retire today, Mahomes is in, Allen's close, Lamar's close, Burrow's probably not there. But I expect that they'll keep playing as long as they want to play, and they'll all be first ballot walk-in, no-brainer, drop the mic, don't waste our time having an argument Hall of Famers, really the way the Hall of Fame should be. The Hall of Fame should only consist of the people about whom there is no argument that they should be in. We know it when we see it. If nothing else, let's have the Deion Sanders upper room that consists of the guys who we know they're the greats of all time, the best of the best. No argument to get them in, either to the Hall of Fame or to the upper room. Another one from Eva G. Any plans to write another book like Playmakers, or are you sticking with fiction? I love writing fiction. I've got 10 different projects going on at any given time, both book and film at this point, expanding toe in the water into the film world at the urging of my agent. But agent is also pushing me to do what would kind of be a bookend to Playmakers. And that's on my list of stuff to try to get to, at least from the standpoint of fleshing out an outline during the remaining PFT Live hiatus. Nonfiction is very different than fiction. With fiction, you write the whole thing and then you sell the whole thing. With nonfiction, you put together an outline, you sell the concept, you sell the outline, the publisher buys it, and then you got to go write the book. That's exactly what happened with Playmakers. We put together an outline, sold it to Hachette. Public Affairs is the imprint under the Hachette conglomerate, and off we went. So there is an idea that when I met with my agent back in May, it was one of the items we talked about, and we kicked the idea around. It's like, yeah, this could be pretty good, but it's hard to make things bubble up to the top of the stack because I got a lot going on right now. All right, one more. Two-tone blue blood. Discuss the worst rule in sports: fumbling through the end zone equals loss of possession and touchback. Make a campaign for change. You know, I've evolved, I've grown, I've changed during my years. Sims has influenced me. I am no longer a believer that that's the worst rule in football. I know it's one of the essays in Playmakers. Everybody knows that's the rule. And Sims has persuaded me, and don't tell him I said this. I don't want him to think he has any influence over me, please. The idea that the end zone is sacred, that's where this all comes from. He calls it North Korea. You're crossing the line into North Korea. One of the things mentioned in Playmakers when we discussed that rule, there was a time where if you threw an incomplete pass and the ball landed uncaught in the end zone, the other team got it at the 20 as a touchback. Now, my proposed hybrid, and I think Sims agrees with me on this, if you fumble the ball, because the problem is obvious. If you're heading to the end zone and you fumble the ball at the 1 and it goes out of bounds short of the pylon, the offense keeps the ball at the spot of the fumble. If it crosses into the end zone and goes out of bounds, the defense gets the ball at the 20. The middle ground I proposed is the defense gets the ball at the spot of the fumble, because that's where the offense would have gotten it. I mean, the defense hasn't done anything to secure possession. The offense bungled it. Why should the defense get 20 yards of field position? You get the ball at the spot of the fumble. If the fumble's at the 1, you get it at the 1. That seems more fair. But you know what? Even now that I've bought into the whole North Korea thing, I kind of dig it. I'm kind of, initially I was going against the grain by saying this rule sucks. Now I'm going against the grain of all the people who think the rule sucks by saying I kind of like it. I think Sims has made me a believer in the worst rule in football. I'm not going to say it's the best rule, but everybody knows it's the rule. Remember when Derek Carr lunged for the goal line and fumbled right before he got in, and then he did it again in another game like the next year? Everybody knows you got to be careful with the ball near the goal line. Everybody knows. And if you don't, it's on you and it's on your coaches. Protect the ball near the goal line. Because if you fumble into the end zone and it goes out of bounds, other team gets the ball at the 20. Usually what happens, there's a push against a rule when there's an unfair outcome or an outcome that's perceived to be unfair. And I do think the biggest litmus test for this rule would come if it happens in a Super Bowl. And that was the argument I used to make. Let's change the rule before it happens in a Super Bowl. And you've got millions of people who are very casual NFL fans who can't process why this is. It doesn't seem fair. And, in those moments, it's for the people at the Super Bowl party who get it to say, well, they treat the end zone like it's North Korea. So that's why the other team got the ball at the 20. So I've done a 360, a 180, a 270. I don't know. I've changed my mind. Sorry, two-tone blue blood. It's not the worst rule in sports. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. Kind of like this episode. Not the best, not the worst. That's it for Monday's PFT PM. We're going to do one Tuesday and Wednesday, and hopefully Thursday if there's enough going on. Friday, 4th of July, nothing on the 4th. Sorry in advance. The goal this week is 4 for 4. After missing the first 2 due to medical reasons, I'm 8 for 8. No, 9 for 9. Try to keep it through the end of the week, at least through Thursday. Have a great rest of the day. I know you'll be seeing this late in the day on Monday, so have a great Monday night. Have a great Tuesday until we see you for the next edition of PFT PM. Check us out around the clock at profootballtalk.com. Have a great day.